my name is Devine Calfchild. I'm a hereditary chief from Siksika Nation, but I was born on the unceded Coast Salish territory, which people know as Vancouver. I spent most of my younger years in Edmonton, and when I got older, I moved to Vancouver and Salt Spring Island, and then in 2008 I came to Toronto, and I've been here ever since. I got involved with Occupy. I started standing more up for the land and talked to some people, some elders who gave me some guidance and some other teachings. And we started this protest or this occupation because of the 11 suicides that happened there, and we wanted to see some action take place. This is the fourth state of emergency in 5 years that they've declared, so there's something wrong, and it's not just Attawapiskat, it's the other nations too. We're not in control of our own resources, and we need to be. You know, like it's really wrong to brag that you found a 35 million carat diamond the size of a nickel, and then you see that these people are in devastation, and you're extracting it from their territory, and you're not giving them nothing. So, to me, why should the Canadian people benefit off of our land and our resources? They talk about how they want to respect and build up our communities, but they don't want us to get powerful. That's the whole thing. They don't want us to get too powerful. And money is not the solution. And see, this is the problem in Attawapiskat and other nations. These white politicians show up for photo ops, right? They don't really solve a problem. I mean, like, I don't know how long Charlie Angus has been the MP up there, maybe a couple years or something, but if he knew that nation was in despair and emergency, why did he wait all this time to do something, you know? We talk about these long-term plans, but nothing is coming through. 5 years later, the people of Attawapiskat are still living in devastating, horrible housing. They think that they're the true owners of the land. And as non-Native people, I'm pretty sure it's hard for them to hear when they hear Native people declaring that, you know, we're sovereign nations and we never surrender our land and our territories, and we see the treaties as null and void through the terra nullius, land without owners. We were here, so how can you claim this land to be yours when we were here first as the original people? So the idea in the beginning was to share. But see, the Europeans put a dollar value on it. The thing of it is INAC says that they're responsible for us, you know, our caretakers, and so if you're asking questions which they don't like, all of a sudden their response is to call the police. And so in the white man law, they're denying us the basic necessities because on their idea of private property, trespassing, and because it's the building is closed and whatnot. We were actually, for the first day and a half, under the Toronto police, and they wouldn't let us use the bathroom, but they would escort us to just empty the bucket now and then, and they would only designate a couple of us to get the food. So we alternated so we could get some air and smoke. So to me, it's just a tactic of what they want. You know, like they think that they're in control, and we're not giving up our sovereign right. When you occupy a space like this, you know, it makes a statement. You know, because that lady even acknowledged that she didn't handle the situation properly. If she would have just answered our questions, this all could have been avoided. And I guess, you know, because of this, you know, it uprose across Turtle Island, which is something we never really ever expected, but at least it got people to move and start occupying and start addressing the issues in their communities and in their nations. And I think that's very important because our government is the supreme government here. And, you know, you were saying before, you know, how they flagged that video because we never surrendered our land or our territories to the people here. You know, we're the rightful inheritors to our land, and we should have the right to decide what works best for us. But unfortunately, what's happened is that in Attawapiskat, there's a lot of Christianity and some people want to have the traditional ways, and you know, some of these Christian people look at our ways as witchcraft and whatnot, and you know, that's not the truth, and we have to work together, you know, on that. You know, whatever the community wants up there. If they want a church, you know, we will respect their right. But if they want a sweat lodge and traditional teachings, you know, we'll offer that to them too, you know. And I think it's really important for Canadian citizens to understand that they have to quit giving money to these other nations in devastation and poverty and start taking responsibility for our nations, right? Attawapiskat, this one youth guy, he said, he was quoted as saying that he lives in third world conditions while Canada opens its arms to refugees. So there's a problem with that too, you know. So you got to take care of the problems here first before you can start extending external aid. And Indigenous people should be also on board with the consultation of who's being let in on the refugee level. And we're not. Because a lot of white people say, I was born here, this is my country, I have every right to be here as much as you. They have to understand and look at their ancestry. Somewhere in their family, their ancestors were involved in the residential school, the stealing of the land, the Indian Act, the taking of the land, the authorization of theft of the resources. And so, if they're not part of the solution, they're just as guilty as their ancestors. And they have to understand that in order to work together, the two governments have to be working equally in conjunction. You can't have one government governing over the other. And to me, the Canadian citizens need to work on what I believe a two-row wampum constitution, which means that the Canadian government and the Onwe governments can work together, sailing down the river of life, but not interfering with each other's affairs, and finally respecting. And that's what really needs to happen. Like these Canadian citizens, they're selling our resources and making money off of it, and that's wrong. Like those 7 nations out in BC that with the oil, when they went to court, China said to Harper when he was in office, if those Indians fuck around with that oil, we're going to sue you. So they didn't want us to interfere with their business plan. And when it came to the court, they said that Indigenous law supersedes, international law supersedes Indigenous law. So they're basically saying that our law means nothing. And that's wrong. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter. It will always distract and then people will forget. But we're not going to let them forget. Because we're going to fucking come back here and we're gonna be on this woman's case about the whole thing. And we're going to make sure that she keeps her agreement on our territory. You know? Because we you know what, we don't want to do this. But we have to, because it's the only way they'll listen, you know. And now INAC is forced to do something because look at right now, every INAC office across Turtle Island is shut down, and there's uprisings happening on all individual territories just out of the blue because people are sick and tired.